Welcome back, everybody. This video is about a protest I covered in Anchorage. These people were protesting judicial corruption in Alaska court systems and corruption in the rest of the state. Do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and let's get into it. Enjoy.
And I think that's kind of bad when we have a governor and he has an office that's staffed that they won't even talk to us.
Yeah. So you tried to talk to him, get him to come down, and he's just ignoring you.
Yeah. And his staff is. So, and we're trying to give him evidence that our judge investigators falsifying investigations to keep corrupt judges on the bench. So it's not like we have an issue that isn't important.
It's massive. I don't know if you've seen in my case that I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with the same thing. It's the courthouse. The judicial system is completely out of control up here. It's out of control.
Yep. So, it's an eye-opener for sure.
So we're live down on 7th Avenue. I'm down here with David Haig and his supporters. These guys are fighting judicial corruption, trying to bring awareness. They're trying to get Governor Dunleavy to come down here and talk to him. Governor Dunleavy's staff has ignored these guys, and so they figured they'd come out here and do a protest and try to bring awareness to the judicial corruption that we're having in our court systems up here in Alaska. So this is David Haig, everybody, right here. He's the man in charge. Let's go take a look at all the supporters and the signs that these guys got. So this is at the Robert B. Atwood building on 7th Avenue.
Hey Dave, did you ever get Steve's phone number? Because I got a letter I wanted to.
Hello, how are you?
Where we're the little peons, they can just pee on us. Well, I'm going to have a video. One of my first videos coming up on talking to these people. I should give you my phone number.
Staff said that they would talk to their superiors, and then when we got here today, they said that unless you schedule a meeting online, that you can't get a meeting by asking for one in person. Well, I've been online and I've filled out their stuff and never got a meeting.
Yeah, there's so much filtration that it's hard for us to get.
Yeah. So, it's they basically are just going to ignore us till we go away, I think is their plan.
Until he's out of office, that's his plan.
Yeah.
The duck until he's out of office.
Yeah. And what options do we have? I guess just keep it. I will say online, like Facebook, there's hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people talking about it now. So, just those of us that are here, it isn't just us. We're the ones that spent the money to get here, but there's a bunch of people that are upset
There's
around the
thousands
state.
of other people for each one of us.
Yeah. So, and I, to be honest, I don't know if this is the right tactic or the right thing to do, but it at least generates, awareness. People, we pass out stuff. And like I said, online, a ton of people follow this. I don't know if you're on Facebook or anything, or it has done quite a bit. So, yo, excuse me. Sorry, I'm going to be. Okay. I think that was Bernadette Wilson, wasn't it?
A lady?
Yeah.
I just heard, no, I don't know. I heard she's running for
I think it is
governor's office.
Bernadette Wilson.
Yeah, and she's having a rally this Sunday,
Yeah.
and I'm going to try to go to that and ask her about some of this stuff.
Well, I think that was her right there. They said they're going to a meeting, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
but and the good thing about her, at least, is Todd was at some function or whatever, and she was there, and she got up afterwards and said, we need to do something about the grand jury. So at least she's aware of it. Glad to do something. So, yo, you want a flyer?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So are you interested in what's going on, or what?
Check it out. See what it's about.
Okay. Well, can I answer any questions?
I got none right now. But so this is about the corruption in Alaska's judicial system.
Correct. Evidence cropped up about a decade ago that our only person that investigates judges in the state is actually falsifying investigations so that judges can remain on the bench. We gave that evidence to the Department of Law and the legislators and whatnot, and it all got basically covered up. And one of the worst things that happened is we ended up getting a grand jury investigation into what's going on. They validated what was going on. They wrote a report about what they found. The judges went in and sealed the report. The grand jury indicted a former judge, and then other judges dismissed the indictment because there weren't enough grand jurors. Apparently they impaneled only 12 grand jurors, even though their own rules say they're supposed to impanel 18, and then one of the grand jurors went missing, and then one of the grand jurors went missing, and then one of the grand jurors went missing, which reduced the number of grand jurors to below the minimum of 11.
And the grand juror that went missing, they never found.
They never found, and they haven't looked for him. And so it's like the whole system's rigged to make sure that there never is an investigation into, whether or not our judge investigator, when you file a complaint, is falsifying the investigations to keep the judges on the bench. And so we found in California, or not California, New York City, when they had systemic corruption kind of like this that was being covered up by the oversight agencies, the mayor of New York City impaneled a independent commission to investigate, and they got to the bottom of it. So we're here to ask the governor to impanel an independent commission to look into what's going on, because all the oversight agencies seem to be unwilling to do so.
What are the oversight agencies that overlook that?
It would be the Department of Law is the main one, and the Commission on Judicial Conduct, the Alaska Judicial Council, the Alaska Ombudsman, the legislature is supposed to, if there's corruption, allegations of corruption, they're supposed to look into it. And then, the Alaska State Troopers, we filed criminal complaints with the troopers. We've, the city police, whatnot. So basically all the official agencies refuse to do anything. And in fact, some of them, like the Department of Law, John Skidmore, the Deputy Attorney General, he has falsified testimony to legislators that kind of looked into it. And so it's like all these agencies are benefiting from the corruption in the judicial system, and so they don't want to, it appears, don't want to uncover it. In New York City, when they finally did get to the bottom, it was said that all the oversight agencies were more afraid of the scandal than of just not investigating and let the corruption continue. And the reason they gave is they said that if the truth came out, the people would lose confidence in New York City, it was the police department. Here, we believe that they're afraid of looking into it because people would lose confidence in the judicial system. So, the lady that's the only person that investigates our judges has been there for 36 years. So,
What's her name?
Marla Greenstein.
So she's an investigator for the judge, and she's been there for 36 years.
Yes, and she's
All
the
judges.
only one.
All
every
judges.
judge complaint goes to her for the last 36 years. And so, I mean, we think it's about time that she had a, that there's some like accounting or an audit of what she's been doing. And the truth is that we did have an audit. We had a grand jury investigate. When they subpoenaed her, she refused to testify. So that tells you anything. So, and then one of the judges that she investigated, they indicted. So I think there's plenty of smoke to assume that there's maybe a little bit of fire. So, and then, yeah, I mean, it goes on and on and on. The grand jury wrote a recommendation, a report to the public. Our Constitution says the power of grand juries to make recommendations shall never be suspended, and they won't allow us to see it. We believe that what's going on deserves the governor to kind of meet with us. The last time we asked for a meeting, he actually had us meet with the Department of Law, with the state attorneys, a deputy attorney general by the name of Corey Mills. When we had the meeting, she refused to discuss the evidence of corruption within the Department of Law and the judges. And that doesn't give you much faith in the system when the head of the Department of Law refuses to talk about evidence of corruption. At one point, she even said we don't have authority to look into wrongdoing by judges and whatnot. Well, if you're the Department of Law and that's your job, we think you should be doing your job.
How many times do you guys try to get a hold of the governor?
Do you have time?
Probably. There's been an email string back and forth over the course of about 4 months. And I would say there's dozens, if not scores of emails back and forth. And one of our concerns is that we didn't know if the governor actually knew that we're trying to meet with him, because we always just talked to his staff and stuff. And the governor's office, they gave a cryptic response. It said, the governor is aware that you met with the Department of Law, and the Department of Law is keeping us informed. Well, we had asked, does the governor personally know that we asked for a meeting with him, and does he personally know that the state attorneys refused to discuss the evidence? And so it's, we get the feeling maybe that the governor doesn't really know what's going on, and that the attorneys are just telling him that we're just a bunch of cranks and conspiracy theorists, and we don't have any evidence to back up what's going on, and it would be a waste of his time. But the reality is that the attorneys are kind of implicated in what's going on, and so they have an interest in hiding from the governor what is going on. And again, we're trying to kind of break through that, and I don't know how to do that. But people like you that are recording this and maybe passing it on will kind of spread the word. But
I'm live.
Yeah. Well, it's a incredible situation that it's possible our only judge investigator is covering up for judges. I mean, the people deserve to know whether that's true or not. And we had a grand jury investigation, and they wrote a report on whether it's happening or not, except the judges sealed the report.
And won't let us see it.
And won't let us see it, yes. And those reports are supposed to be for the public, because the grand jury is the public's arm to investigate wrongdoing by the government. So I don't know.
Do you think this is also coming from the state's attorney?
I believe it. It may be. We wrote a letter. This is the letter I wrote to him. I would like to think that he would do the right thing. I believe it had to be his involvement that got the grand jury investigating that did investigate. So I would have thought that he should try to help, but so far we haven't got any help from him. So
You haven't heard anything from him?
I haven't heard a word from anybody.
Anybody?
The governor's office, we had exchanges where they had us meet with the Deputy Attorney General, Corey Mills. And then after they refused to talk about the evidence, we went back to the governor's office and said, hey, now we need a meeting with the governor because the people he had us meet with refused to talk about the issues. And that in and of itself, makes us feel worried. And then the governor's office just kind of, quit responding also. And we've been pretty, very respectful, I think. And just so that you know, the meeting that we had with the Deputy Attorney General, it was attended by 5 people. 2 of those were borough mayors that were concerned about what's going on. I was involved. Don Fritz, who's on the Funny River Community Board Association, was there. And Rick Davidge, who hosts the Alaska Roundtable. That was the 5 people. And it's online, the whole meeting. And anytime it would come up with evidence like against Marla Greenstein or John Skidmore, the other Deputy Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General Corey Mills would just say, we're not going to talk about that. And if you're the Department of Law and you're telling citizens you're not willing to talk about evidence of crime just because it's a judge or a Deputy Attorney General, something's wrong. It then means that citizens have one set of laws and high-level officials have a different one.
And that's the big problem right there.
Well, that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's the big problem.
If it was any of us that there was evidence of crime, they would be investigating and talking about it.
Yeah, we'd be in jail.
Yeah. And so...
I think it also goes to the prosecutor and the district attorney.
Yeah.
They're the ones also that are allowing the corruption.
Yeah.
They're not, they play plain lie. You get in front of a grand jury and they lie to the grand jury and the grand jury doesn't know what's the truth or not, but yet they're supposed to rule on an indictment or something. But when they're getting nothing but false.
Yeah, and that is a problem, but then what we found out about grand juries is they're supposed to investigate on their own, not rely on an investigation when there's allegations of corruption by government officials who won't investigate themselves. And that's where we really gained some traction. And we got the report, and the one judge got indicted, and and all of a sudden people realized there may be corruption, but then unbelievably the system had enough horsepower to still suppress what had happened and to disallow it. So
how long have you been fighting
anyway,
this? Like when did it start for you?
About 20 years ago. If the corruption is high as we think it is,
Well, it is.
the people at the top can kind of put their thumb on their subordinates because they're afraid of their jobs. That's kind of why we've gone up to the governor, because there's nobody above the governor except the people. And with the Attorney General, the same thing, although the Attorney General is appointed by the governor. And I don't know, we're doing this and it doesn't seem like we're getting very far, but with the civil rights movement, it started with things like this, and it built public awareness until people realized there was a serious problem, and then eventually they went into the lunch counter, sat down, didn't move, and I'm to the point, I have the evidence. I had a grand jury look at the evidence. They indicted the judge. They wrote a report. They went after Marla Greenstein. She lawyered up, refused to testify. So at some point it may be that we all go into this building, just sit down and don't leave until the governor listens to us. And the Attorney General comes in and they maybe appoint another grand jury or find the grand juror that's going on, and the governor appoints an independent commission. This country was built by people like us that weren't afraid of authority that went off the rails. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
Well, this is
They finally
this is
figured
the
out
citizens.
it wasn't right to imprison black people and make them slaves.
Yeah.
That took a long time.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that all this is building public awareness, and we're getting more and more traction on what's going on. And thank you guys, videotaping and you know, getting this out to more people. And like we discussed earlier, the people that are showing up here, this ain't the only people that realize what's going on. We've been sending out posts to Kipnuk and Napakiak and Utqiagvik and Sitka. And there's people all over the state on Facebook talking about what we're doing here today. Well, it's whatever.
The reason I asked you that question about being tased again, because this gentleman right here got arrested and thrown in jail for something he didn't do in Palmer. He was up there documenting what he was allowed to do in the courtroom, and he was maliciously prosecuted by some corrupt district attorney. Do you know? Remember her name?
Jordan.
Brandon?
Jordan Metzger? No.
Jordan.
I know it's Jordan.
It's
Jordan
a Palmer
from Palmer.
DA, and
Yeah,
they were
Palmer.
maliciously prosecuting him here in Anchorage after the judges up there all recused themselves because they didn't want anything to do with the case. And then they had he had put out some YouTube videos on it, so retaliation for this police officer that wasn't even a police officer. He was actually impersonating a state trooper.
It's the same thing that you're
Had
doing.
a trooper uniform on. The guy's retired from the troopers. He doesn't work for the troopers, but yet he had a trooper uniform on and arrested Mr. Lawler and took him to jail for something he didn't do.
Yeah.
For filming.
For filming in the court
What I'm doing right now.
clerk's room, conducting business, which we all have a right to do, to hold our government accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
And he got thrown in jail for it. So that's why I kind of asked you that question.
Yeah. Well,
Eventually they
it just-
dropped the case because they found out, you know, they tried to get him to do a plea deal and plead to a disorderly conduct about something else he didn't do.
5 times.
5 times they tried to make him take a plea deal for something he didn't do either.
And that's what they're doing. 97% of all of the people that are convicted are plea deals here in Alaska.
That's a big problem right now.
97%.
That's a big problem
And
right
that's
now.
what they do, is they get you in the system, they string it out until you can't take it anymore, and then they offer you a plea deal, and at that point,
Well, the judge in his particular case wouldn't even let him represent himself, okay? And that's our constitutional right to go into court and represent ourselves before the judge or before a jury. She would not only not let him represent himself, but in addition to that, she made him get an attorney. He couldn't file pleadings on his own. She wouldn't let him file pleadings. She wouldn't let him file subpoenas to get his information that he desperately needed because the district attorney would not supply him with his discovery information. And it was just terrible. So he ended up having to get an attorney, which was as corrupt as the people he was dealing with. Had to fire that one. That still won't give him the documents that he gave her or him, whichever one it was. And then he had to hire another one that was just as bad. They're all part of the bar association. So he had to hire another one that found out it was more important to go to her daughter's soccer game during the hearing than actually show up in court and do her job. So she didn't show up in court that day to represent him. This was the second attorney he was forced by the court to hire. He didn't want an attorney to start with, but they forced it on him.
A lot of attorneys won't also tell you that in court they will freeze their, you have so many days that they have to get things done. They will keep freezing it to stop you from letting that clock run out.
That's what they did with me.
That's what
They did it for
And
over a year.
people don't
Yeah.
see that's criminal.
Yeah, they did that for over a year. So my case went on for a year.
And
Yeah.
it finally ended up getting dropped in court because of, I think the judge finally saw through all the corruption and finally dropped the case.
No, I finally got an attorney that would fight for me.
Yeah, he
Is what it
finally
was.
got an attorney that was a good attorney, that wasn't one that was actually part of this state. The guy just came up here from Florida, so he wasn't all interacted and, you know, had nothing to do with the other attorney, so he wasn't afraid to stand up and fight for Mr. Lawler's rights in court. What was his name? Jose Musa.
Jose Musa.
Inlet Law. Yeah.
Homer. He's an
Yeah.
amazing.
What a great guy he is. You know, you could just see him up there performing, and he held up the Constitution, and, you know, he witnessed the police officer, and he
Jose Musa.
Jose Musa.
Inlet Law. I'll give you a business card. You can. I do. I'll get when we're done. I'll give you. Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be here.
There's some pretty corrupt attorneys in this town.
It's exactly what David's dealing with. It's corruption in the courthouse. Corruption, it's not just the courthouse. It's the entire judicial system,
Oh, it is.
all the way up to the governor. And this, the way you got what's going on right here today, proves that it's all the way up to the governor. He's made multiple attempts to reach out to the governor, and the governor has refused to respond to him.
Well, there you go. Do me a favor, you guys. Let me know what you think of this in the comments down below. Do me a favor, like, share, subscribe. If you'd like early access to videos like this and more, the members tab is open. Donations are greatly appreciated. Like always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.